Hello, my fellow Americans. Kevin Wells. Kevlar Homunderson Wartooth, as it were. I have a couple things I want to say, per the usual, but this one's it's changing because I'm about to have a daughter. And I just want to sit here before I have a daughter and ruminate. I have ridden countless miles through storms that tried to kill me. I have crossed this land on foot until the ground itself felt like an argument that I had to win. I've stood on mountains so high the sky felt close enough to touch. And in fact, sometimes I think I was born in the sky because I grew up at 10,000 feet. And I have spent more hours above this country than most men will ever spend looking up at it, watching its glory and its weakness from altitudes where the air is thin and the excuses die. Those miles were not recreation. They were the deliberate confrontation with difficulty, the long attempt to understand this land and what it still requires of the men who claim responsibility for it. And that is the record so far. Not a resume of pleasant accomplishments, evidence of time spent becoming competent at the difficult tasks of being a man. And I've had a lot of instruction and a lot of heroes. And early on, I had a guy, a friend of mine, his name is Michael Kerr, and he turned me on to this group of guys. Wild story. The woods of Wyoming. This man, Jack Donovan, he had a book called The Way of Men. And in that book, it drew a necessary distinction. There is a profound difference between a good man and a man who is good at being a man. A good man is measured by the moral codes of comfortable order, kindness, agreeableness, the approval of those who have never been required to stand a perimeter when the perimeter is actually threatened. A man who is good at being a man is measured by an older and more fundamental standard. Strength, courage, mastery, and honor. With those all, you should find respect. But the first maintains peace inside the walls when peace is possible, and the second ensures the walls remain standing when the world beyond them decides it wants what you have built. Both of these men are needed. The duality of man is that both of these men are needed. Civilization requires both, but when it forgets the second, it begins to decay. When men who are good at being men grow scarce, the merely good men become vulnerable. Look carefully at the present. The pandemic exacted a severe toll on the older generation. I've watched. It removed fathers, grandfathers, the men and women who still carried the living memory of genuine hardship and the discipline required to endure it. Whatever name one assigns to that loss, the consequence of all that is clear. A thinning of the intergenerational transmission of competence and resilience. And at the same time, financial systems display increasing instability and the geopolitical map continues to evade. We are at war with Iran. It began in late February of 2026 and it is not resolved cleanly. How in God's name did we arrive here with such catastrophic speed? What blindness, what failure of foresight, what collapse of seriousness allowed this tomfoolery to unfold while so many looked away? And after Iran, since we're making our way through the list pretty expediently, as it were, what emerges next from North Korea? Do we imagine the next crisis will wait politely until we have finished arguing about comfort? These are not abstract questions. The world is not a seminar room. It is a continuous series of tests that remain indifferent to whether one has or was well intentioned. If we failed to prepare young men to be stronger, stronger in body, stronger, clearer in aim, how about that? More capable of bearing voluntary responsibility under pressure, then we are choosing a particular future. A particular one, in fact. We are choosing to raise men who may be morally acceptable, yet practically overwhelmed by those from cultures that never abandoned the older masculine virtues. I see them moving in. I see them. I smell them. The world is not conspiratorially out to get us. It is simply populated by groups that still train seriously for the contests that history never ceases to impose. Weakness is not a virtue. When the contest arrives, it is a dangerous liability. The long work before me is establishing of a school, not another institution that issues credentials while avoiding the real problem. A place dedicated to the cognitive and characterological reconstruction necessary for a people to remember its primary obligations. Cognitive restructuring. Instilling the protection and elevation of its children and the honorable care of its elders. To form men who understand that safeguarding the young and the old is not mere sentiment. It is the strategic core of any sustainable tribe or nation. A society that permits its children to remain weak, and its elders to disappear without transmission of wisdom. This has already begun to surrender our future. It's not lost. The school is the long game, the deliberate restructuring of attention and will, so that the next generation does not have to rediscover under catastrophic pressure what should have been cultivated in relative peace. I have traveled a considerable distance since birth of my first son. The miles, the storms, the failures, the perspective gained from altitude. All of it acquired sharper meaning the moment I became responsible for more than my own continued existence. It was no longer about me. And that is the critical pivot. Because a man who is good at being a man does not terminate his development at personal strength. He subordinates that strength to the maintenance of order for those who cannot yet maintain it themselves. He picks up the weight. He carries it, whatever that is. He insists on recording what was actually done so that the next generation inherits reality rather than comforting mythology. He refuses the modern bargain that exchanges competence for temporary emotional ease. And we must hope that we still possess both the necessary instruments and the will to use them properly. Instruments without will become scrap. Will without cultivated strength remains ineffective noise. Difference between a good man and a man who is good at being a man is the difference between hoping the walls, between hoping the walls will hold and becoming the reason they do. The difference between a good man and a man who is good at being a man is the difference between hoping the walls will hold and becoming the reason they do. That is the work. That is the standard. Everything else I know some very smart and capable men, some great, outstanding leaders. I don't know. It's hard to find anybody that would be able to come together and talk about peace in a manner like this, and the world would just cry out, "Yes, we agree. We want peace. We don't want to kill you." At one point, the war was inevitable. Patrick Henry, in his speech, said, "Let it come." And you fast forward to JFK's, war is avoidable. It's not inevitable. This is the song? Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Oh, sorry, I forgot we were fighting. Nope, we're not rebels no more. Not rebels no more, okay? Let's see where we're at.
Next week,
Next week?
my schedule